Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
Archlector George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Best Served Cold, Joe's first standalone, and the next First Law entry after the original trilogy. On this episode, we review Repaid in Full and Fogs and Whispers. So let's get started. As usual, everyone, we want to thank you all as I sip this drink for your support. Thank you. You guys can jump in. Okay. Wow, the fuck?
What are you drinking, Jeff?
Bourbon and Coke. No, bourbon and root beer. That's a under.
Did you forget? How many of those have you had, sir?
This is my first one today, if that's what you're asking me.
Sorry, you just sounded unsure about the Coke and root beer thing, and it's
No,
a
'cause
pretty easy thing to remember, Jeff.
Shut up. But yeah, want to thank you all again, for your continued support. George was informing us that last week was really a really good week in terms of how many people listened to the episodes.
That's how we know you're telling your friends, which is amazing for our community. Keep up the good works, citizens. I've got that. I'm on the Helldivers hype, so I'm.
Oh, I thought
the propaganda is real right now.
I thought you were slowly building to, Arizona's great change.
No, my mind's stuck in a whole nother planet right now.
Oh, well, you better unstuck that mind, boy.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm drinking, too. I need you guys to talk more. God damn it. George, I know you're sleepy, but wake the fuck up. We want to shout out everybody that's contributed to, the podcast. Whether you've sent us some art pieces or whatnot. And as usual, we want to remind you all to follow us on social media and our YouTube page. All right? Are we good on that, everybody? Good.
Yeah, we're good on that.
Well, I was asking the audience, but all right. So we're going to start off. Since we're only covering 2 chapters this week, you know the MO, everybody. We're going to start off with our best meme of the week. Georgia boy, that is yours. Take it away.
So it's a bit of a more generic one this week. It's not related to any specific chapter or anything, but this is why do I do this on Reddit? And it's just anybody who'll listen, just getting it out there and fucking talking about the First Law to any single person that listens. Anybody that reads books, anybody that listens to audiobooks, you just got to tell them. You got to tell them how good it is, and they'd never believe you.
Never do. They never do.
They never believe you. I just can't believe it. The amount of people that I've told about it, and they've just been like, yeah, I'll get there eventually. And then it's like, 10 years later, and I'm like, have you read this book? Yeah.
It's crazy. I even I had my sister start the Blade itself after all the hype I was giving it, and she stopped after like a quarter of the way. So, unfortunately, I had to kill her. But hey, that's life.
That's disappointing.
Recently, I said, because there is a problem with the Blade itself, especially, like, some people just get through like 3/4 of it and be like, where the fuck is this going? Like, so I always tell people just to start with Best Served Cold now. That's just
that's a good point, honestly.
Oh, you're just gonna do what the movies are gonna do now. Oh, okay. Look at you.
Jeff,
I know.
Oh my god.
No one believes Jeff has gotten older. The more he's like, ooh, different.
No one believes in purity anymore. Things are just out of whack.
No, I think this honestly, you're onto something, George. I think that's the right decision now. Like, the more I think about it, the more I get people into it. The Best Served Cold actually sets the tone too. So if you read, like, you kind of have this expectation of a normal like fantasy adventure. So, but then a lot of people get disappointed by different things inside the original trilogy because their expectation, if you don't have any expectations, it's amazing. But if you're like, I think I know how this is gonna go, sometimes it can be disappointing. And so to start with Best Served Cold, to be like immediately thrown into the blender, I think it's the right call.
Don't mix my reading orders up. I'm like an old curmudgeonly
Thanks, Jeff.
racist. I'm like a old curmudgeonly racist. Just like don't mix things together. And that's Harrison's job. That's not my job. I don't know even why there's that common trope of like how Southerners are always like the most racist. There are way more racists I've met in the Northeast than
Yeah, I'm gonna say, how are you turning this against me, Jeff?
I always turn.
You've already
everything
talked about
against
killing your sister so far this episode, and we just started.
me. I know. I think I've made you out to be a bigot of every shape and form, right? At this point, 2 years in. Unfortunately, I've said Harrison's anti-everything. I think we're going to go back the other way. Now it's going to be George who's pro everything. That's what I'm going to do. All right. Well, thank you for that meme of the week, George. It does ring true, right? Doesn't it all? We just can't shut our mouths about the fucking first law. So we appreciate it. So we'll move on to our first chapter read through, and this is Repaid in Full. Folks, this is where we witness the aftermath of Morvere's and Day's thorough application of their talents. And we start off from Manza's perspective. And at first, she's staring at the bed, right? And she's not too happy what she sees because she's remembering that, right, I smoked some opium, and then I banged Shivers. Not a great idea. Ugh. So she kind of regrets it. And she pulls the blanket from Shivers, and he's like groggy and sleepy. He goes, "What's up?" And she tells him to, come on, let's go. But before that, she also throws 5 scales on his chest, for last night, more than a fair price.
Services rendered.
Uh-huh. And then he kind of goes, "What?" He's like, "I feel like a whore." And she goes, "Aren't you one?" And he goes, "No, I've still got some pride." And then she goes, "Okay, so you'll kill a man for money, but you won't suck a cunt for it," which is, wow. And
that's actually one of my favorite parallels inside of the series. Is that one right there that Monta says, because it happens everyone inside the series. It's always about killing and things like that. But it's like, oh no! As soon as somebody hoards themselves out, what a devious monster.
Yeah, but that really especially applies to men, even in real life, right? We men tend to pride themselves, goofballs that they are, that they can get a woman without money being involved. Ooh. Well, too bad, boyo. Shivers, you getting paid for the work you've done, and it was work, my good sir. Although apparently he doesn't have that much of a talent for fucking. According to
it does make you wonder what she sees in him. Oh wait, we'll get to that later.
We will get to that later. And also maybe she's just being a dick at this point, right? She just could be to distance herself.
She's trying to distance herself. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So she says, take the 5 and stick to killing in the future. That you got a talent for. And Shivers just kind of just rolls over, pulls the blankets up, and he just goes, close the door on your way out. It's fucking cold. Anyway, so Manza goes. We get a bit of a time break. Manza goes, and she's out here. She's training with her sword with her left hand. As we know, her right hand is in a state of ruin. And so how she's training is she's beating the shit out of a window shutter. And, doing a great job at that, apparently. But Morvere is also nearby. He witnesses this. And he makes a joke. He's like, what does he say? He goes, "There's not a shutter in stereo that will dare oppose us." Anyway, so they a bit of a banter, but then Manza asks him, he's like, "Okay, so is it done?" Morvere says it will be. She asks him, "So he's dead?" He goes, "He will be." And then she asks him again, "When?" And he's just like, "Oh, no patience, Jesus." So he says that, "Look, jobs done well are rarely done quickly, but it will work, and it will be masterful." So he says he gives it about an hour to be, it's probably by the time it will take effect so that she can go and see for herself. But he warns her to not touch anything in the bank, which should give us a bit of a hint as to what's about to occur, I think. And so then, do you guys want to comment on anything that's happened so far before I move on to the next part?
It's just, I think that I love how anytime somebody sees Morvere, it's just like,
Fucking this guy.
And he just doesn't do anything to help himself out, does he? He just is like,
Nope.
you know, Monza's like just not putting up with it at all.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, I have a whole a treatise to talk about in terms of Morvir, but we'll do that, I guess, at another time. But George, did you want to add anything here?
No, I'm all good.
Okay, perfect. So we take a bit of another jump, and now we are in the banking house of Valint of Balk in Westport. And it is Monza and Shivers. And we're looking at this again from Monza's perspective. This whole chapter is from Monza's point of view. So she's, looking around. It's, crowded as it usually is. And she's wondering, all right, where is Malthus? Is he dead? What's going on? Until she spies over yonder a lean man with a hook nose speaking to a group of fur-trimmed merchants and a clerk flanking him on either side, ledgers locked under their arms. That vulture's face sprang from the crowds like a spark in a cellar and set a fire in her. Malthus. All right, folks, she has made contact with Malthus. At least she's locked eyes on him. He doesn't see her. And let's say something kind of happens here, right? So before she starts to move, somebody calls out in a corner somewhere, right? But she pays it no mind. She's got tunnel vision. She starts walking towards the guy like a moron. If you're hiding, presumed dead, you don't go basically bull rushing your target in a public setting, right, boys?
Yeah, she's being a bit silly here.
And being a bit silly. and I wonder, I guess we'll talk about it after this chapter. I want to get your thoughts on it. But she starts to walk straight for him, and then we're hearing, off page chatter, I guess we could say. Shivers is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then we hear somebody else say, "Give him some air." And then Monza keeps going and going. She's getting too close at this point. Whereas, at this point, if he just turns in a certain direction, he sees her, he can call for guards, right? And then out of nowhere, the banker, Malthus, winces all of a sudden. It looks like he got punched in the stomach by the way his reaction is, right? And then he takes a step where he lurches a little bit. He clutches at the wall. And now people are moving all around the place. And, Monza's hearing whispers all throughout the bank. And then the people around Malthus are like, "Stand back, turn him over. What is it? We don't know." And then, everyone's like, "Sir, sir." And then meanwhile, Malthus's veins are bulging from his neck. He's clawing at one of the clerks beside him. His eyes are just glowing with being wet. And Monza kind of just is creeping closer and closer. And she goes, "What is going on here? Whoa." And then, funny enough, as he's on the floor writhing, in pain or choking or whatever, his eyes meet hers. And now they're just staring at each other. And he kind of slowly points one finger up, a quivering finger, Sonny. But but
he's like, he sees her
wheezing at your own joke.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He sees her, and he's like, "What, Monza?"
Adeptus Historical strikes again, and he's he's mouthing "muh, muh, muh." He can't, whatever. And then his
The real question is, do you guys think he was gonna say Makato or Monza? Which one could it be?
Or motherfucker, or
or Mother Mostly?
Mother Mostly reference.
Oh shit!
Maybe that's his daughter. You never know.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Okay.
Named his daughter Mother Mostly.
Mother Mostly.
Go
ahead, Harrison.
No, I'm just being an idiot. That's all.
Okay, you're being an idiot. I'll cut that.
You're killing me.
Sorry. So Yeah, Malthus's eyes they start to roll back, and he starts to dance, but not in a cool 70s vibing way. More of a herky jerky white people at a 2000s.
He dances like Harrison, not like George, right?
He dances like Harrison, not like yes, but it's an involuntary dance, and everyone's staring down, and they're horrified. And then out of nowhere, one of the people around Malthus starts doubling up, and they start having a coughing fit. And now people all over the bank are shouting. Everyone's saying, "Help! Over here! Somebody! Some air! Some air!" And so like, everyone. It seems like there's like noise coming from every corner of the bank, and then like a clerk gets up from his desk, just clatters over his chair. He starts staggering, and then he crashes, and like a comedic effect, a shoe just flies in the air, which is hilarious to me.
That happens a lot more often than you think.
Uh huh.
When people like fall over or fucking it happens, your shoe just comes off.
It happened to me once in high school in English class when we were doing a very brief rendition of a scene from like Romeo and Juliet, and I was the dad that was angry as shit at Juliet talking to Romeo, and I proceeded to fake slap her because we don't believe in that kind of violence, and somehow my shoe came off. I remember that vividly. So,
when you slapped her, when you pretended to slap her,
did you slap her with her foot? What?
I slapped her right upside her fucking face. All right, anyway.
cut that up.
Now I'm gonna leave that in because it's a joke, obviously. Anyway, a woman gives a piercing scream. Shivers at this point is like, "What the fuck is going on?" Another clerk by Malthus kind of is on his knees. He's trying to like breathe, but he can't. And then going back to Malthus, pink foam is starting to froth from his mouth. And at first, remember we said he was dancing. It was akin to like a thrashing. Now it's more like a bit of a twitch, and then nothing, and then his body just sags. And now his empty eyes goggled up over Monza's shoulder towards the grinning busts ranged around the walls. 2 dead, 5 left. And then right after that, somebody just shouts out, "Plague!" And then in that instant, it's like a giant panic, right, boys?
Yeah, and for those who don't know, back before there were fire alarms, that was the way to get everyone out of a building.
You just shout plague, nondescript.
Over here, there
strikes people down in the middle of the day. Like, it's fine.
I like to think that there's actually like a little like podium.
That's what I was gonna say. I think they probably had the tapestry over one door, and they were like, "Exit here in case of plague."
yeah, exactly. And of course, there's only certain spots around that are optimal for whenever you scream that everyone in the building can hear you. It's kind of like fire alarm strategically placed. Instead, it's like when you yell, it's like an amphitheater, right? So you say it at the right frequency, and everyone hears you. It's like that's a fact. That's what they used to do.
In fact, that's his only job. He stands there all day and he screams plague when the time arises.
He's like, finally, my time to shine. Too bad it's a commission job,
Oh, it's a commission job too. No. Reminds me of that one job I saw where apparently there's a job where a guy has to climb a tower twice a year, gets paid $20,000 just to change a light bulb twice a year. That's it.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's this
He's
guy.
Sitting there every day waiting for this plague. Like, come on.
Basically, he's just sitting there, clocks in, doesn't get paid until he shouts out plague. I wonder if he gets commission for how many people get trampled, because that's essentially what happens here. Monza nearly gets barged over. Shivers has to come in and step in and protect her. But people are just now. It's just panic. It's chaos. Everyone's trying to go through the door. I think there might be just one door, or maybe 2. I'm not sure. But everyone's going for the entrances. Monza's having to punch somebody in the face. She gets carried along with the wave. Shivers is trying to, shoulder her out. She gets knocked around. People are getting knocked around. A woman gets kicked in the face. A woman gets punched in the face. A dude gets punched in the face. Some guy gets, trampled by the stampede. Again, it's wild stuff. It's wild stuff what happens here. So Shivers is eventually able to kind of like shoulder her and carry her out. And then they go, they get out of the bank, they cross the street, they go towards the house that they're staying at. Monza's able to see Morveer. He's at the window, up top, and he's grinning and waving and everything's, oh, great, whatever. And Shiver says something in Northern that Monza doesn't understand what it is. And he opens the door, and then Monza comes right after him, and then she grabs her sword. She goes right for the stairs, and she just, she takes them 2 at a time, boom, boom, boom. And then she opens the door to the room where Morveer is. And, Morveer's there at the window. Day is at a table just, munching on some bread because she's always eating something, apparently. And Morveer starts to say, he goes, oh, there seems to be quite the ruckus down there. And then he turns around and he looks at when he sees Monza's face, he starts smiling. He goes, what? Is he still alive? Monza goes, he's dead? Dozens of them are. And then he kind of goes, yeah, business like that. The books are in constant movement all over the building. I couldn't take the risk that Malthus would end up working from a different ledger. And then he asks Day, what do I never take, Day? And she goes, chances. Caution first, always. And then Day says, that's why we poisoned them all. Every ledger in the place.
That's like the most unhinged.
It's the most. It's
like,
just say it with such fucking casualness. Like, yeah, we just murdered like 50 people. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, because like it had such a delaying effect too. Like they killed enough people to think that they had a plague outbreak.
You guys want to continue that line of thought or not yet?
Well,
it's just astounding, isn't it? Oh, go ahead, Harrison.
I just was gonna say, as they go back and forth here, like it is interesting, right? Because Monza is like offended that he did what he said he was going to do.
Right.
And it is in Morveer's on his side of the court, I guess. He did say, like, no matter who gets in my way, I will make sure the job gets done. I'll kill whoever needs to be killed. I'll do what it is. And he was right. I mean, there's not really another way they could have done it. Not for sure.
Needle image,
yeah. A needle.
Yeah.
Well, shut up, Georgia.
Yeah.
But, not for the context of the story, obviously, Morveer would have put needles in every chair, if that's what he did. I never know what chair he's going to sit in.
You might be sitting in this clerk's desk or this clerk's desk.
Exactly. So I think that it is strange. Like, I remember first time reading this, right? Like Monza almost seems super inconsistent with how she reacts to things. And it on purpose, right? We'll get into that more in a second. But
yeah.
I first read this, I was like, why is she like upset? I was like, yeah. And that's exactly the reason Morveer says, I didn't think someone like you, the Butcher of Cabril, somebody who's been like a murderer and on a battlefield would have an issue with this kind of bloodshed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, they go back and forth for a little bit. How basically she thinks, oh no, I only want you to kill the people I tell you to kill, no one else. And he's like, bruh, that's gonna make things harder. And what's your deal here? And then she basically is like, fucking try me. And he backs up, actually, surprisingly. He's like, okay, you're the employer. I will do what you ask.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's confused because remember, like you mentioned Harrison, when they first meet, right? When Morveer and Monza meet, after when they were paralyzed, he asked her, he's like, you can only get this done, by killing Duke Orso and everybody, if you don't care whoever gets in the way, like you said, no matter how many people died for you to get your vengeance. And she, like you said, it's like no matter the cost, basically, right? And he goes, you said that. I had to make sure he died. I couldn't take the chance. It's not my fault. I did what I said I was going to do. You told me that you were okay with this. So the responsibility here doesn't really fall on either of us. It kind of just drops between us. So,
And you're not going to mention this beautiful language that
I'm
Morphe uses.
gonna let you do it because I know you love it. So go for it.
It's the emphasis as well. It's the emphasis on the words, isn't it? Like a turd straight from a beggar's ass and into an open sewer. What the fuck? He's especially because he usually uses such fucking eloquent language, and now he's just like turds and asses. What the fuck?
That's exactly why it fits so perfect too, because Pacey like pauses whenever he says that. He's like, "Now it sits there like a turd." Like he doesn't want to use the word, but what other word is there?
No, you're right. What other word is there? But yeah, like you mentioned, Harrison, it is like to be honest with you, when I read it the first time, even now when I read it, I mean, not now when I read it. Now when I read it, I understand that. So I guess I get into it after we do the chapter rating. But anyway, she says, like you said, Harrison, conscious that it's not about conscience, it's about keeping control for her. She says, and then she says, we'll stick to one at a time. Not, everybody getting straight up murdered. And, he's like, sure, will we now? And then she tries to do the threatening, like, step up, bitch. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, I don't fight, I poison. So whatever you say, lady. And then he goes, all right. So then he tells her, him and they leave because he goes, we should go get some air, actually, because there's no appreciation and there's a lot of hypocrisy in this room right now. Snap, snap. Then he leaves. And then Monza looks out the window and, the crowds, have kind of broken up, but there are still like people are nervous. The guards and City Watch are kind of just like, what the fuck is going on over here? And then she grabs like a chest, I guess, not a treasure chest, a chest. And, just flings it at the wall. She's like, she yells out and she's just like very upset about how this occurred. And Shivers kind of just is standing there in the doorway watching this all and watching her. And he just says, I'm out, girl. Bye.
Yeah, Shiver sees a red flag and does what most people don't do. And it's like, this is a little much. I'm peacing out.
Mm-hmm. He
but,
says, no, go ahead, Harrison.
I was just going to say, but we'll see how Bonza reacts to him saying this.
Yeah. She, she kind of freaks. She goes, no, I still need your help. And he goes, listen, facing a guy, that's one thing, but this. And then she tells him, the rest is going to be different. She'll see to it. And he goes, yeah, nice, clean murders. Yeah, I doubt it. And he goes, if you set your mind to killing, it's hard to pick the number of the dead. And Morveer and people like him might be able to step away from it and smile, but he can't. So she goes, what? So you're going to go back to the north with 50 scales? That's it? Just grow your hair and go back to terrible shirts and blood on the snow? I thought you had pride. I thought you wanted to be better than that. And he says, yeah, I wanted to be better. And she tells him, that you can be. Just stick around. Who knows? Maybe you can save some lives that way. Steer me down the righteous path. Then you can be good and rich at once. And he's like, I'm starting to doubt that a man can be both at once. And she kind of circumvents that and says, help me, I have to do this for my brother. And he says, look, the dead are past helping, vengeance is for you. And she goes, for me then, is there nothing I could do to change your mind? And then he kind of just his face gets a little sour and he goes, toss me another 5, aren't you? Or something like that. And she goes, okay, all right, hold on, I shouldn't have done that. All right, that was rude. You didn't deserve it. I lost my brother and he's all I had. I don't want to lose someone else.
Blink, blink, blink. Oh, my big old doe eyes. Oh, I love you.
Ellipsis. That.
Yeah, she's totally love bombing him, right?
Yeah, and then Shivers is kind of like he's quiet. It looks like he's angry. He's hungry. He's ashamed. He's there for a moment, and then the next words we hear out of his mouth is 10,000, and then she goes 6. And he goes 8. It's done. All right, get packed. We leave within the hour. And he goes, right. And then he kind of just goes, all right, I'm just gonna leave. And the last line of this chapter was, and that was the trouble with good men, just so damned expensive. So boys, how do you rate that chapter? And let's give our thoughts.
I think the chapter has like an arc to it, and it's pretty nice. Like it's all in Monza's like point of view, where she's like starting to understand what she's actually trying to think. Like she kind of starts off, she thinks she knows what she's doing, and this is like a continuation of that. She wakes up, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm all about revenge. Yeah, I don't need this man. Yeah, you're just a whore." And she walks in the bank. She's like, "Yeah, where's this guy? I want to see him in his eyes. That'll make me feel better about everything. I'll watch him die." She watches him die. And she's like, "Okay." And then everyone else starts dying. She's like, "Whoa!" And then she gets back, and she's not. I don't think she's even actually mad at Morvir. She's mad at herself for wasting all that life because of her own vengeance that she's looking for. And unlike the reaction that we get from somebody like Pharaoh, who is like, "Oh, fuck those guys. They got in the way. They shouldn't have been working with them." She's like, no. That's just, let's not do that again. And we get more into exactly why later, like kind of her way her brain works. And then we get back to the Shivers thing, and she backpedals that. It's almost as if it's a reaction to her not really knowing how to deal with, like, she doesn't want to be alone, even if Shivers is not even the best substitution for that. She just wants somebody as a companion because she's been used to that her entire life. So it's pretty interesting chapters for Monza, and I think I'm going to give it a 6 and a knuckle.
Okay, George.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna give it just a 5. I do like it. It's just it is very short. A lot does happen. Actually, yeah, I think I'll go for a 6 as well. Fuck it. Go on. I just want to draw attention again. Like Harrison, you said so many good things about the chapter there. You've summed it up really nicely, but I just love that, like with the shoe thing and Morvir being absolute freak as usual. Like he still manages to make it funny, even though this is absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
And endear me to this weird group of people, like even more. Actually, we just didn't get enough friendly in this chapter.
We did not get any friendly in this chapter. That's correct.
So yeah,
probably bro's just sleeping.
He's just sleeping. I've done my job. I go to bed.
He's probably pouting he doesn't get to go in the building where they can count things.
She's like, you probably went in afterwards. It's like counting how many died. Like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, they'd come back, and she's like, "You know how many you killed? 24."
He comes back with a heart on too.
Yeah, she looked at him, and she's like, "Not helping."
What about you, Jeff?
I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 9 fingers. So close to a trifecta, not really, but Harrison, I like what you said about the arc, because like I agree. I think there is an arc here in this chapter, or maybe you could say kind of like coming full circle in a way, because in the beginning we see Monza distancing herself from Shivers, right? And then by the end of the chapter, she's now reestablishing the connection with Shivers. She's trying to bring him closer again. So, they're opposites there. And then we see her testing or training in the courtyard in the banter with Morvir. She's talking, she's in her mind's eye and everything. She's so excited to get her vengeance. She's so eager. She needs to see it. She wants to see it. So she needs to know exactly when Morvir thinks the poison will take effect. And then we get the other side of that, where she actually is able to witness this poisonous venture come to its conclusion, and she is not happy about it. So her first interaction with Morvir in this chapter is one of maybe like eagerness and I want this to get done. Yes, tell me when. I want to know. I want to see it. And then her last interaction with Morvir was like, "No, bad Morvir, bad, no." So this is where people. This is example of what people lying to themselves continuously from moment to moment without really confronting what it is that's driving them. And we'll get into that more with Monza later on. But yeah, good chapter. Like George, you said, really quick. So there was a lot that transpired within the short amount of pages, the little amount of pages. So that's why I'll give it a 6 out of 9 fingers. Cool with that, boy? Are we cool with that?
That was a
That's
trifecta.
acceptable.
Yeah, that's acceptable. Thanks. George, did
What'd
you
you say, George?
It was a trifecta. I changed mine to 6.
No, but he
Mine
had
was
a knuckle.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Damn.
That's right. Change yours to 6 and a knuckle now.
It's too late. It's too late. So that's the end of that first chapter read through. So now we'll move on to our character spot. And who else can it be but
Malthus. Although, is it? I always have a hard time because it's like is it? I know it's spelled Mauthis, right? So is it Malthus? Malthus? But the way that Pacey says it, it makes it sound like mouth, like Malthus.
Malthus, yeah.
It's weird.
That's the way I've always said it in my head, anyway.
it's Malthus. Malthus. What else could it be?
See, you start
Malthus.
It's weird.
Malden. Oh, Malthus. Wait, no, you guys read the audiobooks. How does he say it?
Yeah, it's Malthus. Yeah.
Okay, then
But-
don't fucking trick me.
Now, whatever we did do a character spot for him in the previous trilogy. I think we did it back in Before They Hanged. But the thing is with Malthus is like we don't really get much information about him, but I really like how consistent he is, and I like to think that like he's looking up at those busts behind, and those busts are of Baez and things, and he's just like there's like two things going through his head. He's simultaneously utterly terrified that he failed, and then super relieved that it's over. That's always what I imagine. Like he's just a trapped dude.
Trapped, dude. I would have thought, like, in addition to that, maybe not relieved, but more like, fuck, even in death, I can't escape this cocksucker.
Or, like we kind of theorized before in the last character spot, maybe he's like all in on it. It seems like he knows quite a lot. Like he seems pretty.
I think he knows quite a lot just by virtue of the fact that Baez or Yoru have basically not made it. They've made it very clear that it's not just a regular job as being the CEO of Valen and Volk, baby. You gonna die. You don't just get fired. That kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think Malthus has obviously been threatened with something terrible. Like, I mean, we know that they came after Glockter as well, so presumably he's taken off this big fucking loan. Mm-hmm. And when they realised how good he was at his job, he just got promoted, and now he's just like stuck.
I don't know about him taking a loan. Malthus seems too, he's too by the book, too good at his job. I don't
know. I think there's a line in Blade itself where he's like, when Glockter asks when would the debt be paid, and Malthus actually says, if it's anything like my own experience, probably never.
You're right.
Yes.
He did say. Wait. He did say something like that. I just can't remember specifically.
I think it may have been vague whether or not he's actually talking about himself or if he's talking about.
And people change too, Like he may have not been that way. He maybe he was pretty bad, and then he was like he just got really, really good at what he needed to do with that.
Can you imagine a Malthus pre the first
Pre-Baez Malthus.
Pre-Baez Malthus, and he's like, he's smoking husk, he's a coke-addled gambler and everything. He gets in the wrong crowd.
really in debt.
and then he just totally shifts, and now he's a by the book, clean cut, very regimented, even in how he speaks and how he moves, kind of person. That's what I want. A prequel on Malthus. That's what I want.
I will say, as credit to his character spot, right? Malthus is one of those characters that we don't get that much time, but we can have discussions like this. We're kind of being funny, but we're also kind of being serious. Like Joe writes complicated characters. It could be the case that everything that we're saying about him is true. He was in debt, and now that he's not out of debt, he's terrified and he's worried. He doesn't like being under their thumb. He's always going to owe them, but he also knows that he also kind of owes them everything he does in life. And so he kind of respects that, and that's all he knows now. So that's kind of cool. And he takes pride in his job, But then, it's like that's what makes him an interesting, good character for being such a side character. Is that you can sit there and discuss like his little minor interactions and stuff all day long, trying to figure out who this guy is because can write complex characters.
Yeah, and on the surface of it, right, it seems like his only purpose is to just serve Valen and Bulk. I mean, we see that he's present at the assassination and the assassination attempt of Manza and Benna, and he doesn't even flinch. He's just like, "What does this have to do with the loan I just offered you? Why am I here? You signed the paper. Get the fuck out. Can I leave?"
Yeah, and on that note too, I don't think Mathis should have really had to die. I mean,
yeah, I agree. He was just there, and well, I'm not gonna spoil anything just yet. I don't think it's certain somebody else.
I know I agree.
It's like just because you're there doesn't mean like they didn't help out or they actively, didn't want it to happen. The fuck?
Ooh.
It's not like Malthus saw what happened, right, and then kind of stood over Benna. And then kind of like dropped his trousers and took a shit on Benna. Like I would have understood that. All right, we're gonna kill him just on.
That's very specific, Jeff.
I'm just saying I would have understood that. But the man was trying to like fold papers into his briefcase. Next thing you know, two people he doesn't even know are getting stabbed in the same room as him. He's like, why am I here?
What is he supposed to do? Jump to the defense?
Yeah. So Manza, you fucked up on that one. Don't like that.
I don't, George. How do you feel about him?
Like I said, I think he's just, he's fairly innocent when it comes to this kind of thing. Like he just relays messages. He threatens and bribes and does all the bureaucratic stuff that buyers and Yora don't want to do. So, I kind of feel bad for him. Just doing his job, and even though he's a banker, it's 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
But like so many other people in the First Law, there's two sides. There's more than two sides to his character. Like you said, even though we probably only get like a total of like 10 pages with a minute.
Yeah, not really, hardly anything.
So yeah, he's interesting. Yeah, he's definitely an excellent character.
Well, folks, that's the end of our character spot, and unfortunately, that is the end of our time with good old Malthus. There will never be another like you who handles numbers so well. Oh, wait, we are friendly. Never mind. Bye, Malthus.
Bye.
So we will now move on to our second chapter read-through. Here we begin part 3. It's titled Sipani. And the quote here is that the belief in a supernatural source of evil is not necessary. Men alone are quite capable of every wickedness. Dun, dun, dun. And we get another little prelude, I guess you could say, prologue-ish kind of thing, in terms of Manza and Benna as they are growing up as little tykes now. So this is when they're still on the farmland. Well, they were in the area of the farmland. They had gone out, if you remember, seeking revenge with a couple other folks. One of them was, what's his name? Destort and stuff. Destort got hanged, as part of revenge from somebody else. Kind of go back and forth. There was war. And then finally, the sides between, what was it? Can you guys clarify? Was it Talons and somebody else?
I think it's hang on.
Massalia, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
yes,
Talons.
It's Massalia.
Yep, Talons and Massalia. They made peace with nothing to show for it, for all the blood that they've lost in the time where each side has been kind of getting revenge against this farmer or that farmer. And all right, time to go. Some soldiers show up and say, "Hey, no more revenge. That's it. You're done. Go back to your farms." On their way back to their farm, Manza and Benna come across a certain town, right? And a village, and they see a vision of martial splendor standing at the edge of a broken fountain. In a breastplate of shining steel, a sword hilt set with glinting gemstones at his hip. His name is Nakomo Koska, captain of the Company of the Sun, fighting with the 1,000 Swords, the greatest mercenary brigade in Styria. And they have a paper of engagement from the young Duke Rogant of Austria. And they're looking for people. They are looking for men with experience of war and courage and a love of adventure and taste of money. All this stuff. And then Benna is hearing this is like, we could do that. Sounds like Gollum to me. Sounds like Gollum to me. Anyway.
Money, precious.
We can do that, sis. Yes, precious.
We definitely get the idea too, like that as they're, they're ready to go. She's ready to go back farming or whatever, and Ben is like, nah.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, wait a minute, we can make money so much easier. Mons is like, I just want to live a normal life, and he's like, no,
right, yeah. And then Monza goes, no, I'm done. I'm tired, and I'm done with fighting. And then literally, Nakoma goes, there will be no fighting. There will be no fighting whatsoever. Like, I love how it's just timed perfectly. He just says it out loud, and he goes, I can promise you that. And when there is fighting, you'll be paid 3 times over. Scale a week plus shares of booty, and there's going to be plenty of booty, plunder. Trust me, our cause is just. Well, just enough, and victory is a certainty. And then Ben, like you said, Harrison, Ben is still like, we can do that. You don't want to go back to the farms, right? And I can't tell if I'm doing Gollum or Jar Jar Binks. Anyway, so... So then Mazza's starting to think about it, and then she goes, you know what, you're right. So she shoves past the line of people the queue of people that are lining up to join. And she, goes to the front. She goes, I am Manzcaro Mercato, daughter of Japo Mercado, and this is my brother Benna, and we are fighters. Is there work for us in your company? And then Casca kind of looks at her and goes, we need men with experience of war, not women and boys. So we see that Casca in his own right is a sexist and an ageist. So then...
It's true. If I'm
pretty sure they're like 14, Well, I don't think that's ageist. I think
actually...
Shut up, George. You don't understand the power dynamic structure. Boop, bop, boop, bop, bop, bop.
Actually, to be fair... I'm pretty sure because Monza is probably like 4 years older than Benna, significant enough. Like there's a larger age gap there, which is a whole other problem. We'll address later.
I think he's like 20 or 30. I don't think
no,
he's not in his.
No, but Monza is probably 18, 19 here.
Wait, in this, yeah, but she's still no way because then and by the current events, Nakoma would be.
We actually use Nakomo's age. No, Nakoma Casca is like 52 inside of Best of Cold.
In the current events of Best of Cold, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then how is he 40 years older than Monza when she's 14?
4. He said that Monza's 4 years older than Benna.
I said, yeah.
Oh. I'm going to just cut...
If you would leave that in.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm going to leave it in. Who cares? I apologize. I thought you said some... Never mind. Go ahead. Continue, Harrison. I'll shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I was just going to say to your point, Jeff. I mean, Monza's definitely young, but he's more like, a woman and like a 14-year-old youngster. Okay. Like, yeah, sure. Ooh, you're so tough. Which anybody would be. Right. Even if an 18-year-old boy came up to me and was like, hey, I want to join the war, you'd be like... I know we do that nowadays, but like, do you really want to?
You can't buy liquor, but you can die for your country. Get in here, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought you were going to add to that. Are you done?
Yeah, that was all I had to say.
Okay, yeah. So then Monza is not, despite all that, right? Monza is not, she's not deviating. She's not moving at all. She goes, we got experience more than these fucking goofballs you got here. And then one of the farmers nearby, he does the whole, I got work for you. How about you grab these nuts? That kind of thing. And then Monza it was just like, ugh. And then Monza basically breaks his teeth. She knocks him down, smashes his face in with her boot, and now the man got no teeth. Now he can't eat. Now you can't joke. That's what you get. And then Nakomo is just looking at this, goes, interesting. And then he turns to his fellow man who is at the table that will be taking down the volunteers or the conscripts or however you want to call it. And It's a black guy, and he calls him by his name, Sir Jam. Oh, it's Sir Jam. Sir Jam has returned to us, folks. It's been a few chapters.
Sir Jam. Oh, yes, Sir Jam. Yes. So we were right. He was with the company for a little bit of time at some point.
Yep. Sir Jam. I guess whatever the correct pronunciation of his name is, right?
Yep.
All right. Anyway, so then he goes to Sir Jam, right? And he goes, Sir Jam, does it specify men specifically? What is the wording? And then Sir Jam kind of just like reads, and he goes, It says 200 cavalry and 200 infantry, those to be persons well equipped and of quality. Persons is all it says. So Nakoma goes, and quality is such a vague word. Mercado, you and your brother, you're hired. Get in here. So they're hired. We love that for them, right? We love that for them. And then the farmer that made that joke says, oh, something about his teeth. Monza says, look for him, little bitch. Anyway, it's a bit of a time jump in the still prologue. And the group that, the Company of the Sun, they're camped out. Nakomo sees Monza and Bennett. They're huddled together around the fire, but they're, huddled under one blanket. He comes out of nowhere, and he basically gives them his cloak, his giant cloak. And then they ask him, oh, what do you want from him? He goes, nothing, just whatever, just take it with my compliments. And he goes, and then Monza is suspicious, obviously, which makes sense. She's the oldest child, right? Had to take care of Benna, everything that's gone on. And she doesn't trust it necessarily. He goes, well, a captain looks first to the comfort of his own men, more them than his own. And that's what Stolicus said. And then Benna goes, who's that? And Nakoma goes, Stolicus? That's like the greatest general in history. An emperor, the most famous of emperors. And then Bennett goes, what's an emperor? And I like Nakoma Casca's answer to this. He goes, like a king, but more.
It's fair. That's a good answer.
Very good answer, because that's literally what it is. I can't even tell you what the difference is. And then he gives them a book, and he goes, you should read this. It's a small book. And then Monza grabs it. She goes, I will. And then she kind of opens it up a little bit and just like looking at the first page, but she's waiting for Nakomo to leave. And then Bennett kind of just snitches on her, and he goes, well, none of us can read. And then Casca here at this moment, younger Casca, he goes, and he's like, twisting the end of one of his mustaches, right? And he goes, children, children, children. He sits down and he goes, this here is the letter A. And that is very sweet and nice. That's the end of that prologue. We see that Casca is nurturing in a way, or at least teaching Monza and Benna, right?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty heartwarming moment. It's one of those, it's up there in the series for me. Like, it's such a subtle, just nice way of him. Like, he has no incentive to do this whatsoever. Mm-hmm. At this time especially, he's just as like, this seems like the nice thing to do. Like, it's very, very kind, and it shows a lot of what we see here in the future with how Monza is and why she is because of this moment. So no wonder she remembers it so vividly.
Yeah, George, what do you think about this little prologue?
I love it, and I love to see Casca back as well. Obviously, he wasn't a huge character in the first trilogy, and just to see him back again, and we'll get more of him in a bit, but I do love to see him.
So thanks for that, George. We'll move on straight to the chapter read-through, which is Fogs and Whispers. And we are now in Sipani, folks, true and proper. And Sipani smells of rot and old salt water, of coal, smoke, shit, and piss. So Shivers is our guy here. He's our POV. And if you thought he was kind of let down from the initial sight of Talons, he's befuddled at this point, right? Right, boys.
And we know he fucking hates fog as well, or mist.
Oh yes, we know he hates the mist. That's right.
He's got another PTSD reaction to the mist.
Yeah.
Believe what a pussy.
What a pussy.
He only watched some of his closest friends die in that miss. I don't see this.
You're a dick. You're a dick. And not only is there like a lot of fog in Sipani, right? And while he's following Monza, it's just him and Monza, by the way. Him and Monza are walking down these streets of Sipani. They're going to a certain destination. We don't know which one yet, but they're going down. And besides the fog, there's water coming out in each and every way. What we take this to mean is that it seems like there's a lot of canals. Sipani would be the Venice of the first law, correct, boys?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Harrison, would you
not being
agree?
an island, you know?
I mean, all I can say is
Canals. Sipani.
It's Sipani. It has canals.
This is Sipani, the city of canals. Anyway, so yeah, there's canals, there's fog, and everything. And Shivers is not happy, like you said before. Wait, Harrison, you said that, or is it George? No, George, you said he hates the fog, right?
Yeah, well, presumably anyway.
Yeah,
He
presumably.
doesn't actually mention it, but assumes so.
We're just gonna assume so. I'm gonna cut this bit out. Like you said, George.
Anything out, fuck you.
Oh God, son of a bitch! Like you said, George, Shivers is not a fan of fog / mist / smoky entities.
All right, maybe move on.
Move on, Jeffrey.
I am. I'm moving on. Jesus Christ. And so he curses it. He curses out the fog, and then Monza does the first of this like little repeated bit, which I like. She goes,
It's one of my favorites.
"Yeah, right." She goes, "This is Sipani, city of fogs, city of whispers," and then they still keep walking. And then people are coming out of the fog, out of nowhere. He hears footsteps. The sound is kind of playing tricks on his ears and everything. And then, like, again, more people that are drunken coming from, like, parties and everything. They come out of the fog so suddenly that Shivers kind of has to, like, swerve to, like, not crash into them. And then there's this one group that passes by him. He goes, "Motherfuckers." He's lucky I didn't kill one of them, right? And then Monza, she does it again. She goes, "Get used to it. This is Sipani, city of revels, city of rogues."
It's such a cheesy line, isn't it?
It is.
But in most books, right? They'll have a line like this, like this is the city, This is Sipani. But then he just turns it into a gag, and it's one of the best in the whole series. I just love it so much. It always runs throughout. This is Sipani.
It's so good. It's so good. And then it continues after. It continues after that, and it's like, and it's from Shivers' mind, the bird's eye view is like rogues were in long supply, and then there's men around steps and men around bridges and buildings, and there's even women too, and women in windows that are just barely dressed, no matter how cold it is, and they start calling out a scale, or
They sound so enthusiastic too, which
Yeah.
I love. Like the way Pacey does it, it's always like a scale. Come get a scale. As a leg creeps out the doorway. It's brilliant.
I love the one that's like a scale, 10 bits, then 8.
Yeah. Just keeps getting lower and lower.
But is that with that enthusiasm, George, or more like the enthusiasm that Harrison said?
It's just desperation, isn't it? Like it's just like
Oh.
immediately like
It goes from being
6.
like yeah, exactly. It goes from being like the droning, like, "Oh, here's my job," and as soon as Shivers looks at them, like pays attention to them, they go, "Okay, I can do 8, 6." Like they keep going lower because they're just doing their normal droning on because it's their job. And then as soon as they hear that somebody might have a chance, they want to make money. So
Yeah, and Shivers is not too happy about this, right? He comments, he goes, "Ugh, selling themselves." And then Monza comes in, she goes, "Everybody's selling themselves. This is," and then Shivers goes, "Yes, I get it. Fuck it, this is Sipani. I get it. All right.
yes, I get it. It's fucking Sipani.
Whatever." And then finally, Monza stops walking, so Shivers stops walking. They get to a door, and Monza says, "This is it." And it's like, okay, so they finally got to their destination. We don't know what it is, right? So Monza knocks on the door, And not too long afterwards, a woman answers the door. A tall, lean woman, and she has a certain way of standing, like if like the fog and the night were all hers. She just owns it all. And Shivers brought his, he has to like kind of look at her a little bit closer with the lamp. He goes, "Huh, interesting." And it's a describing her face.
This description reminds me of
Yeah. I wonder
Atari. It reminds me of Atari.
Oh, really?
Well,
Why?
I wonder if they're related.
Why does it remind you of Atari?
Well, it says he's got red hair and it's all lanky and stuff.
Did say this person has freckles and short red hair sprouting all the ways, right? Yes, you're right. Let's see. Okay. Next line. Shiloh Vatari.
Oh shit! I was right. Whoa.
Oh, it is. And did we know Vatari's first name in the first trilogy? Did we know it was Shiloh?
Yes.
We did. Okay.
So. Which is kind of a cool name.
It is. It's a cool name. And Vatari knows who Monza is. She goes, "Oh, you'll be Mercado then, right?" And Monza goes, "That's right, baby." And so, okay, cool. So they introduce each other. Shivers says, "Yep, my name's called Shivers," and everything. Boom, boom, boom. And I like how when Shivers had to say, my name is called Shivers. I'm not anybody's man. I'm my own man. Vatari goes, "Ha. Okay, fine. This is Sipani, friend. Everyone belongs to someone. Northman, eh?" And then he goes, "Well, is that a problem? What's going on? What's the beef?" And she goes, "I got tossed down a flight of stairs by one before. I'm not too comfortable with them since." And we know who that was. Folks, if you don't remember, in the Blade
Logan, call out.
Yeah, if you don't remember, folks, in the Blade itself, when Logan and Pharaoh are running from the Practicals in Adjua, Vatari got smushed by Logan while hanging on his back and then tossed down a flight of stairs. And so that's who she's referencing. And then she asked him, intelligently enough, she goes, "Why Shivers?" And Shivers got caught off here. He goes, "Huh? What?" And she goes, "From what I know about the North, you get you earn your name from great deeds and stuff like that. So why Shivers?" And Shivers at this point goes, "Oh fuck," because we know how he got the name Shivers. We do, because we read the first trilogy. But he didn't want to look like a little bitch in front of Monza, so he goes, "Because my enemies shiver with me timbers when they face me," whatever.
And it's funny that he does that because he does that the first time the gang meet him in Lost Like the Kings.
I thought he kind of just went straight to being honest.
No, he says that first, and then he says like 10 minutes later, he's like, "Oh no, actually," but tells the actual story. But like right. in this, he like just keeps it to himself. He's like, "Oh, this is a new place. No, nobody knows here."
He's like, "It'll work this time for sure. It'll work."
True. Okay.
And I love that Shiloh just sees right through it. Vatari's instantly like, "Okay."
Your enemies must be some pussies like that. And then Monza interjects, right? And she goes, "Okay, all right." Sir Jam says that you know people here. And she goes, "I know everyone. Do you guys want some soup?" "Nope, fine. They're great." So anyway, so then Monza goes, she tells Vatari that Sir Jam tells her that Vatari can get things done. So then we get a sense of what Monza's possibly planning, which is something. But Monza says that she hears that the King of the Union is coming to Sipani. That basically the whole gist of this, right, folks, is that Giselle Dan Luthar, or Giselle Dan, what was it, Harrison? The king, his royal name? Huh? What? You cut out.
Giselle Dan King.
Giselle Dan King.
His August Majesty.
His August Majesty, bastard son of King Guslav the Fifth or whatever.
Yeah. Oh no, they don't call him that anymore. Leave out the bastard bit.
Giselle Dan, the High King of the Union.
I'm leaving it in. Anyway, so is going to bring peace to Styria, apparently. So that's the rumor that he's going to put together a conference to negotiate terms between Duke Orso and the League of Eight. All the leaders are going to come who are still alive, at least. Rogon and Celier at the front, and Sartorius, who's going to play host in Sipani. Sartorius, I'm assuming, we as a first-time reader is assuming that it's a leader of Sipani. Right? And then Vitari says that Giselle's got his brothers-in-law on their way to speak for the father. So Monza gets real eager. She goes, "Oh, Voskar and Ario both?" And she goes, "That's right." And then Shivers kind of interjects and goes, "Oh, they're going to make peace?" And he's like, no, that's not going to happen because this is Sipani. All we make here is fog. Anyway, so
I love how that is just like all the way throughout the chapter. Like everyone's like, "This is so bad." They're so serious about it. Like characters in this are just usually not this serious about stuff like this. But
but you know what it is? I get the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, George or Harrison, if you think that when people say it, like Monza or Vitari say something like "This is Sipani, city of goofballs and goofies" or whatever, that they're saying it offhand. They're not necessarily taking it. They're not like really serious about how they say it, right? I can't tell by the audiobook because I haven't heard it.
No, George is right. They do say it like in a serious way, like this is a fact. This is Sipani. This is how things are. But it just plays so well into it. It's kind of like this little thing that Joe does where it's like meta at the same time as it being purposely dramatic to be funny, but also Sipani, if you could do it with any place, Sipani is it. Like, it's perfect.
If you're right, if it's serious, then it definitely plays into this much better. You're absolutely right. So yeah, so we get back, so they're talking about how it's the whole conference for peace is just a sham in general. That is just for Giselle to feel more important, for Orso to kind of distract the leaders in a sense, but the leaders aren't falling for it either until, Orso's troops and the 1,000 Swords are lining up outside Viscerine or something, right? So, because the idea is that Orso is not going to make peace, right? He's trying to be here to truly be the king of Styria or the emperor, because, an emperor is a king, but more so. And that's what it is. So, and then Monza is asking, okay, what's going to go on here in terms of like with the brothers, Ario and Voskar. And Vitari tells her that there's going to be a ball where everyone's going to be wearing masks in honor of the king and queen at Sartorius's palace on the first night of the conference. They're both going to be there, Ario and Voskar. Yeah, so then Shivers kind of chimes in and goes, "Well, that's going to be pretty well guarded, isn't it?" And then Vitari goes, "A dozen of the best guarded people in the entire world, all sharing a room with their worst enemies? Yeah, I think it's going to be well guarded." And then Monza gets a little like not angry, but like a little testy at this. She goes like, "Well, what the fuck else then?" And then Vitari goes, "Well, I'm no friend of Ario's, but I know that somebody else is, somebody that's a very close friend of his." And then Monza's like, "Oh, we should be talking to them then at this point." But at that moment, the door opens suddenly. A door opens suddenly in the living room, and Shivers is almost about to like throw a hatchet at somebody. Turns out it's just a kid. It's just a little child, 8-year-old, in a pajama, top and bottom, and it's just like with red hair and everything, and it's just looking at Shivers, looking at Monza, and then looks at Vitari and goes, "Mommy." Cass is crying. Cass, C-A-S. That's important to me for me to tell you all. And then Vitari, look at Vitari being a great mother.
Yeah, she suddenly like switches to meanness, doesn't she? She goes like,
right?
"Oh,
This is odd because we got a sense, right? In the first trilogy, we got a sense from Severard where he said he saw her through the window with her children, right? And then we got the sense from when Glocta threatened or pretended to threaten her kids, even though he never really had them in custody. And we saw her reaction to that. But this is the first time we're seeing Shiloh Vitari, one of the most baddest bitches out there in the world, in the circle of the world. We see her being such a nice, kind mother, right, boys?
Yeah, exactly.
We kind of it's definitely like a little jarring, simply because, like you said, she's pretty hard and intense. But at the same time, it makes sense, and it also just is kind of nice for this to be in here.
Yeah.
I think for some reason a lot of people think that Joe just does like the same exact stuff, like plot tropes, things like that, and this is in my mind proof that he absolutely does not. Like, he does definitely mixes things up, and there's a lot of variation in the stories that happen.
Interesting. George, before you continue, Harrison, what do you mean specifically by that in terms relating to Vitari's ability as a mother? What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is like that, that everybody's parents terrible, and that all the world's just so cruel and there is no hope and all that, all grim, dark.
Grim. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. George, you were saying something?
No, I was just agreeing. I mean, it is like a little ray of sunshine here, though, isn't it? And it is Shiver's reaction is fucking hilarious as well. He's like, and it's just a kid. He's like, oh no.
Never mind. No, but we here at the Circle of the World podcast, we stand, love, and promote fantastic mothers. So good on Vitari. Basically, what the daughter says is that Cass is sick. Vitari's like, okay, I'll be right up there to, take care of you and sing to you all. Just soothe them until I get there. Boom. And before she leaves, she kind of just shivers one more look like, why is this little fucker with the hatchet in my house? Which is great. And then, parent talk, one kid gets a cough, we all get a cough. Am I right? That kind of thing. So then Monza goes, yeah, well, okay. Anyway, it's great that you have a great family and everything. Fantastic. But can you help us? And then Vitari goes, all right, well, who else do you got with you besides, Mr. Shivers Me Timbers here? And they say, oh, Friendly, a guy that, is muscle. And he goes, okay, cool. He's a little bit strange, but yeah, he's good. All right, who else? A poisoner and his assistant. And she asks him, is it a good one? And they say, according to him, his name is Morveer. And Vitari goes, Castor Morveer? That bastard's about as trustworthy as a scorpion. And then Monza looks back, goes, listen, even scorpions have their uses. Can you help us? And then Vitari goes, I can help you, but it's going to cost you. Now, if we can get the job done, something tells me I'm not going to be welcome here in Sipani anymore. So then Monza says, well, money's not a problem as long as you could get us close. Do you know anyone who can help us with that? And the Vitari goes, I know all kinds of people, and I think that's related to Oreo's friend that she mentioned earlier. But folks, that's the end of that chapter. Boys, what do you give that?
And I'm going to give that one a 4. There's a couple of interesting character moments, but a lot of these chapters are, we get into Sipani and we're setting the scene. I like the whole joke with everyone being so serious. This is Sipani. Shivers, yeah, I fucking get it. This is Sipani, whatever.
City of nightmares, city of death.
But it's nothing special to me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say, honestly, I think I agree with you, George. 4 out of 9 fingers. Nothing special. It's just, all right, cool. I mean, it's cool. We're finally in Sipani. We're starting the next part of a segment of the book. But
I would also rate it, I think a 4 is totally fair. For the same reasons you guys said, I think it covers it well. Again, this is Sipani is hilarious, but that's all I got to say.
Yep. So that's the end of our chapter read through, folks. And looks like that'll be it for the episode, as we do not have a community interaction segment for this one, but stay tuned for next episode's community interaction segment. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast As you all know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot to us.
Join us next week as we cover The Life of the Drinker, Left Out, and A Few Bad Men.
And make sure you follow us on all of our social media and visit our website at circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast. Thank you all again for listening. This is Sipani.